We are reading an audiobook reading of the novel, Engaged to be Married. We're in Chapter 6. Chapter 6, Travelogue, May 21st. Charles sits on the bench at the Amtrak train station and ponders his destination. The ticket reads Chicago, Illinois, to his first stopover in Osceola, Iowa. He gets a call on his cell and sees that it's Lynette. He sighs. Now or never, I guess. Hello? Lynette speaks through clenched teeth. Charles? I'm a bit put out with you, darling. I've been trying to reach you all day. Do you not remember what day it is? Yes, I do. It's Monday. It's not like Charles to be a smart mouth with her. His time can always be accounted for, as Lynette demands that he check in with her at least twice a day, every day. She would choose more times than that. Charles has been careful to remind her constantly that he has work, and some of the time he must work to make money. Lynette has complied with his wishes to a degree. His option was that she could call him once a day to check in. She countered with as many times as needed. They compromised on 2 calls, no more, no less, unless it was an absolute emergency. And she has used that emergency card often as well. On this day, however, she's become a little more than suspicious. Where did you say you went, dear? I didn't. He wishes that he had just lied and said that he was tied up with clients, but he stupidly forgot to have his secretary cover for him. Charles, she pauses. You sound a bit stressed. What's going on, Charles? It doesn't matter. Listen, I really have to go. What are you even saying? Charles, dear, you're not making any sense. You clearly aren't at work, and you aren't with a client, and you've taken off work, but you're not here? What else could you possibly need to do? You know that I had simply a ton of decisions to make today, all without your input, might I add. I'm sure you enjoyed every minute of it, he mutters. She's more than furious at her fiancé, but keeps herself under control. Charles has never acted like this. He is usually so quiet, and unless it interferes with his work hours, he is usually amicable to all of her wishes. I did, although it wouldn't have been much more enjoyable with you by my side. It would have been much more enjoyable with you by my side. Sorry. Hey, I gotta go. Go where, Charles? Lynette begins to fume. There are still all these decisions that must be made. These cannot wait. Doesn't it matter to you? He wishes she'd go on ahead and blow up and lose control and say she's done with him. Of course it really should matter to me. We are going to be freaking married after all. All the freaking decisions really should matter, but they don't right now, okay? Charles? Something's wrong. You've never spoken to me this way before. What is going on, Charles dear? I demand to know. Let me explain. I need to... Charles keeps getting interrupted by her persistent insistence on answers. These are answers he cannot share with her, answers that he doesn't even have himself at this point. Lynette isn't really listening to Charles as he tries to complete a sentence. Her thoughts have drifted, and she has a sneaky suspicion that he might be trying to surprise her, but he's really messed it up by missing their wedding planning appointment. Everyone who knows Lynette knows she just loves surprises. She thinks to herself, but why would he be so short with me? Planning surprises doesn't seem to come natural to Charles, and maybe he is upset that I'm asking too many questions. Her voice softens then. It's all right, dear. Don't bother to explain. Okay. It's about time to board my train. Charles cringes as he has that slip of the tongue. Her shrill voice comes through loud and clear from the other end of the phone. What did you just say? Charles, a train? Our reception must be bad. It sounded like you said you're about to get on a train. Yes, a train, Lynette. She reverses tactics and resorts to having a meltdown. Her emotions shift into panic mode. But what? Why? Where? To where, Charles? That doesn't make any sense. I'm going on a trip. I can't talk. I'll be taking off soon now. Charles, wait, please wait. She can barely breathe. Please do explain to me. He yells into the phone. Lynette, just do what you want. You will anyway. Another stifled shrill comes through the phone. He can tell Annette's extremely upset now, near to coming unglued. Her voice hurts his ears. Her high register, whenever she is particularly happy or angry or scared or irritated or whatever, grates on his nerves and always has. He's thankful for the lovely distraction of an incoming loud train and whistle. It completely drowns out an irritating, demanding tone in her voice. Charles hears her firing off questions, but he will get in the last word this time. I don't care one iota about that wedding stuff. Do you understand? Anything you decide is fine with me. Oh, I can't hear you, can't hear you. Her ear-piercing voice can be heard over the noise at the train station from the other end of his cell. However, Charles is thankful that there's another loud blast of a different train's horn. The inanimate noise wins out over her screeching. Charles is being cold-hearted, but he really doesn't care today. She tends to be that way towards him on a regular basis. Charles is not even sure he still loves Lynette anymore. He's pacing nervously while talking to her, and realizes that he does that whenever conversing with his bride-to-be or her mother, just to blow off steam that way. Shrugging, he visualizes himself like a restless caged animal prancing back and forth looking for an escape hatch. Charles persists in pretending not to hear any of her questions at the other end. What? What? Hey, the train's pulling into the terminal. I think I heard the call for, yep, gotta go. Okay, goodbye. Gotta go, bye. Charles closes his cell. He looks at it for a second and then angrily begins to shake it vigorously with both his hands, as if to choke it to death. He raises his arm to throw the cell as far as he can, but thinks again. No watch means he must resort to his cell phone for the time. Plus, even though it's only a very basic, out-of-date flip phone meant for simple text and phone calls, a part of him cringes at the money lost if he destroys it. Instead, he yells directly at the phone. Just leave me alone. Is that too much to ask? I'm on my own time for once in my life. Nothing you can say will stop me. I am taking these 3 freaking weeks. There are 10 minutes at least before his train is due to even arrive at the station. He knows he should feel like a jerk doing that to his fiancée, but also feels that he had to find a way to get off that phone and silence her. Charles plops down at the end of a long metal bench. A thin young girl sits at the other end of the bench. She's watched the sad scene unfold with Charles pacing, sometimes shouting at his cell phone. She noticed how he desperately looked down the track several times for the sign of the train to take him away. She can easily relate. And she heard him being grossly disrespectful to a person on the other end of that call. The young lady sees Charles looking her way, though he is staring out in space. She gets up from her seat and plops down right next to him then. There's no reaction from him. He's lost in his thoughts. She again stands, makes a dramatic display of pulling out her cell phone out of a jacket pocket. She holds it high in the air, sure that he's seeing her, and then throws her cell as far as she is able. She's caught his attention finally. Charles gasps at her bold action. She smiles, rubs her hands together as if to finish with her cell phone forever. Calmly, she sits back and sighs contentedly. And that's how it's done. Charles is shocked by her, but offers no comment, only shakes his head disapprovingly and in amazement. She has just copied his actions, but was bold enough to go through with wholly defying others at the other end of her phone when he wasn't able. He does wonder why she'd do a ridiculous thing like that, and he's very curious, just not enough to actually speak to the young girl about it. Perfect, beautiful, golden silence is what he's trying for on this trip, his main goal for the next 3 weeks. He admits to himself that the last person he wants to talk to on this trip is an emotionally unstable female, much like Lynette. The young woman doesn't seem to care to strike up a conversation with him either. He didn't take her actions as wise counsel and didn't follow suit like she possibly presumed he might. Did she hope her odd action would make a real connection with him? No, this gal seemed pretty uninterested in him. She just sits there staring forward. Charles can't help but notice her outfit. She's a total wrinkled mess with a completely mismatched group of colors and patterns. Choppy hair that is like nothing he's ever witnessed before. It looks like she just woke up from sleeping with one finger stuck in an electric socket. It doesn't surprise Charles that he is now so utterly aware of oddities of her apparel and seeming weirdness about her persona, although he's used to Lynette's perfectly matched ensembles complete with purses, jewelry, shoes, and dresses, and sometimes gloves. So basically anyone else would look unfinished then. He notices that she doesn't have any luggage either, only a tiny zippered bag with a strap around her wrist. Charles has to force himself not to wonder about any of that strangeness, but his curiosity of her mysterious story grows by the second. Should the new cool Charles choose to even be seen in her company? Ultimately, he decides the offering of conversational pleasantries is not the best way to go with her. And yet, this bothers him because he now realizes how off-putting he was in his previous clothing choices. The attention he had received from an early age had been only teasing and bullying. It wasn't until he met Lynette that he even thought it was possible for anyone else to find him attractive enough to like, let alone to fall in love with, and then to marry. And only then he was made aware of the fact that his money was the real attraction. He knew that. Sure, he felt after all this time that Lynette really did have feelings for him, but love, sure, in her own way. In love, he finally realizes that she's in love with being married and the security that money brings. Is that enough for him? Hopefully this trip helps him decide if that is. He does feel a bit guilty leaving his fiancée to imagine what is he ever up to. After years of being the dutiful boyfriend, amicable and quiet, his behavior must be very shocking to her, and he realizes that too. However, Charles discovers he's able to brush off those thoughts of guilt and justifies his right to be allowed this free time for himself. He convinces himself that Lynette probably won't care for his new style anyway. An ominous thought pops inside his stylish, handsome head. He should do them both a favor and just leave her for good before she humiliates him and leaves him first. The young woman still offers no acknowledgement of him. Oddly enough, she has remained seated very close to him, close enough for each to enjoy the pleasantly wonderful, if not altogether magnetic aroma of the other. Charles seems invisible to her, though. She had at first perfectly sat down beside Charles, even threw away her cell phone, seemingly in an attempt to catch his attention. It could be construed as a gesture to spark familiarity with like circumstances between them. Charles has tried to study her without making it obvious. After all, though Charles has been a geek all of his life, he's not blind to a slim, younger woman who has decided to sit next to him. Sporting a suave, tailored appearance, he's feeling pretty darn confident in himself for the first time in his life. Although she looks to be a lot younger than he, his new appearance has sparked questions he's never previously had before. He has to admit to himself that he is wondering if she finds him attractive. He had never turned heads before and is feeling the desire to do so now. The past several months has made him rethink a lot of decisions of his past. He'd never thought of getting married and starting a family until he met Lynette. He wasn't looking for a relationship, but after meeting her at a function he attended on the request of his father, they both being alumni of the same college, their father's old college friends, felt as though it was a match made in heaven. On paper it was, but as the years went by, his refusal to officially propose and set a date should have convinced him that something wasn't right with their relationship. If it wasn't right with Lynette, and he is still trying to figure that out, then would it be right with anyone else? Charles has to laugh at the thought as he considers the not so obvious. He thinks to himself, we look as odd together as well as Lynette and I have for these many years. Wow, that's a revelation. Yeah, this trip is going good so far. The young woman shivers like she has a chill. The familiar feeling of earlier days floods over him as he imagined that he's back in school, lonely with no friends to talk to and shunned by his classmates. He's still Charles, whether the outside is dressed nicer than before or not. Obviously, anyone can sense that, and he feels rejected. So much for all the cash he's plunked down, but he thinks he wasn't doing it to catch another woman. Not really. He did it all for himself, so why be so offended that she's now ignoring him? This young girl owes him nothing, not even the time of day. She has shown him that she had the guts to let go of her lifeline while traveling alone on a trip. The major hint should have been enough for him to take the lead. And yet there he sits, a weak-willed man who doesn't have the guts to go through with doing the same thing as she had done. He isn't even brave enough to talk to her, a stranger. The girl keeps sneaking glances at Charles and whispers under her breath. Finally, she says, "How rude." She feels that her actions of walking over, sitting by him, and even throwing away her phone should be enough for him to respond with something. Possibly a hi, maybe a question, anything. She had no intention of talking to anyone, but something about this man drew her to him. Charles doesn't hear her soft voice, though. He's focused on his own version of what is happening right here. Charles thinks maybe he should get up and go to another bench, but for some reason he can't bring himself to do that, thinking it would be very rude of him, so he merely turns away from her. Life was so simple when he was blind, deaf, and dumb to style, suaveness, and self-improvement. A sleeping giant has been awakened inside of Charles. He is still discovering what being cool is like and the nuances it holds with the many twists and turns of his emotions. Thinking and then rethinking each situation in it is a new process for him. Charles held to black and white issues and read sometimes in the negative. Facts and problems with finite answers were simple enough to understand. Keeping life plain and simple and laying everything out on the table is what made sense to Charles. Inside his head, a confused Charles has indeed entered a different world where the culture is foreign. His life has been turned topsy-turvy. If he does come through this life change and stays sane, it will be a miracle. Charles is splashing around not in a new pond but in a sea of suppressed emotions and has tapped into his real feelings like never before. No longer is he a numb robot who once was comfortable living a quite robotic life. He is not so sure his brain can tolerate all this information without exploding, let alone all the emotional stress this strange, albeit interaction with this young girl has just caused. At this very moment, his heart is pounding for some reason. It's a terrible side effect from being fully aware of his perceived coolness and, more to the point, her perceived rejection of it. When he set out this morning, he had envisioned the new Charles cool, calm, and sophisticated. Somehow, all of a sudden, he has to come to terms with what he envisioned not playing out in real time for him. As demanding for resolutions as he is, Charles cannot fix this with yet another equation. Now he just feels dumb. Dumb for thinking life would change for him in one day. Dumb for throwing all that money away on frivolous things. It's buyer's remorse for Charles, big time. The train ticket gets away from his fumbling fingers and glides onto the floor of the deck. He reaches down to pick it up. Determinedly slapping it into his palms, it makes a loud sound, causing the young woman to take notice. Charles tries to be sincere. "Yep, can't lose this." She says nothing, only silently critiques him. thinking that he should have said nope instead of yep. Curious as to why she is still silent, although he didn't really address her directly, Charles braves his fears and leans her way just a little. Nope, sure won't get far without this piece of paper. He then leans back the other way like he was more or less resituating in his seat. She smiles. Had he read her mind? He did say nope. Charles cocks his head, and so she repeats it. Nope. Charles cocks his head now that she's responding. He's not sure how to proceed next. She offers him another small crumb, a small comment. Yep, you got that right. He sighs. He's not good at small talk and wishes she would know what to do and move this encounter along. The first part of his day was a definite rush. Shelling out his cash was freeing. Like any drug, though, once it's over, it's over. But this is torture. He is nervous and really doesn't know why he is drawn to this young girl or why this is having such an impact on him. He is getting away to be alone for a time. So why is he feeling like he wants to connect with another person, a mere stranger? He needs to think on something else. What in the world he is going to do with all of that free time, 3 weeks, that he will have over the train tracks for the next 21 days to be exact. If he spends every minute thinking, he's going to drive himself crazy. Part of the goal is to discover if there's more to Charles Bingenton than meets the eye. Try new things, live a little, see what he's been missing. He hopes his efforts will pay off, but the phrase comes to mind, you can't buy happiness. But, he whispers to himself, you can buy time to think, and that might be more valuable for me. The train arrives and the call to board comes over the intercom. People begin to shuffle around and most of those on deck do board the train. Some folks stand on the platform waving goodbye to their loved ones. A few tearful partings cause Charles to be strangely moved by their displays of bittersweet affection, missing their family already. This makes Charles acutely aware that his and Lynette's was not a sweet parting. Quite the contrary. His leaving like he did has only caused questions and suspicions. He knows he should have said something, should have prepared her, warned her some way. He was afraid he would chicken out if he didn't just go and do it. The thin girl walks a few steps further on down the ramps and mounts steps to board the train. They are now entering the train, one car away from the other. The two look to see that the other is boarding a different car. Both quickly turn away. Charles shrugs. This exchange with a complete stranger has affected him more than he feels it should. But she has chosen to not continue the weird encounter any longer by entering a different car. He did as well by choosing not to follow her. Maybe the answers he hopes to get will help him discover why he's so bothered by that whole ridiculous episode. This is the end of chapter 6 in Engaged to be Married.